How about now? How about now? Okay, I think that worked. Whew. How about now? Okay, I think that worked. Whew. How about now? Okay, I think that worked. That's not good. Whew. How about now? Okay, I think that worked. That's not good. This is the experimental music version of the or portion of the show. We like to get it started with a little little tape loop going here. All right, I think it's working. I'm going to mute the sound here. Yeah, fast and soundy. That was a very somber Vast and Starlit that this started off with. I wasn't expecting that. But also a very fast moving one. So it's both somber and I guess motion sickness inducing. I'm not sure. Oh no. Oh, okay. I see what's happening here. Hello. Hello to the chat. This is episode 4 of The Night Rider. And clearly I don't have my technical chops all worked out quite yet. We're going to watch Eppy struggle through designing a game from scratch live on air. I will go over what happened in the previous episodes in a moment. I feel like I should have some sort of intro banner. We're also going to watch Eppy struggle with how to do a live stream. That's another thing that's going to happen here. All right, hold on. I made a oh yes, Fred. Yes, I am using Vim. M asked me to kind of create a little side video. I won't do it now. I won't do it live. I'll probably record something and do it, edit it, whatever. So I'm not stumbling over my words like I am now. But to just kind of talk about the technology that I'm using here, so that people kind of have an understanding of what's going on the screen as I type things in, and also maybe like because I put all the stuff up on GitHub, I can kind of describe or explain how that works. Some of this technology is very new to me, so I won't pretend to be an expert, but I would I'd let you in on what's happening here. Obviously, this technology is very old to Fred, who I get the joke. It's a Vim joke. Search and in the chat, Fred said S/Intergalaxian/Transformers/G, which would change all of the instances of Intergalaxians to Transformers. See, I had to explain it so that people understood. Anyways, let's do this. Intergalaxians. Let's go down a little bit here. I created a little checklist here of previously on to kind of just talk about what we've gone over in the past few episodes. Obviously, they're up on YouTube if you want to watch them, but I can get you caught up pretty quickly. I'm designing a game in the first episode to give myself a excuse to design this game. We created an imaginary toy line about interstellar warriors that can swap their various parts. The idea here was that there's a line of toys that came out in the late 70s that never actually did, but inspired in many ways by toys like the Micronauts, as Fred points out. This toy line, the whole thing about the toy line was that you could take the limbs and brains and parts off of different action figures and swap them with other ones, and then make your own heroes out of them. And then, like many toy lines at that time, they get a comic book, and in an attempt to sell these toys. So in the early 80s, the first comic book series comes out, and in this comic book series, the story that is told is about these space warriors, these Intergalaxians, the incredible interchangeable Intergalaxians, are were shot out of ships, catapulted out of ships towards other ships far, far away, and then they were supposed to like land on these ships and cut through the hull and take over these other ships. So they're kind of like terrifying space knights of some sort. But then they miss several of them. You know, if you did this for quite a while, you're not going to hit every shot. So a certain percentage miss and just kept traveling through the void for centuries. And now the comic book, again, that doesn't exist, takes place thousands of years into their future, where their history no longer exists, and they're searching the galaxy trying to find each other. So that was the early 80s. I like this feel. It feels like comic books I enjoyed back then when I was a kid, that were aimed at me or about toys, but actually had like more mature themes, not like super mature themes, but like more interesting than just, you know, the type of stuff that show up in the cartoon. However, you also need a cartoon. So then shortly after the comic book, you have a short-lived Saturday morning cartoon, which is a little bit more lighthearted, a little more formulaic, a little more He-Man, if you will. Like maybe you have the same 6 or 5 Intergalaxians that are always hanging out together, and they always solve the problem by swapping their limbs with each other or something like that. I haven't worked any of that out yet. Maybe we'll work some of that out tonight. Then after that, late in the 90s, you get the edgy, super mature version. I think Joshua suggested last time that it was simply called I, because Intergalaxians would be considered too cheesy for it. I like that suggestion. And I have disdain for this. Again, none of these things exist, but the super mature, I'm going to draw some inspiration from this non-existent comic book, but I'm also going to hold it at a distance. And then last time it was suggested that some sort of mid-aughts pastel colored cartoon reboot that would upset the delicate sensibilities of regressive quote-unquote fans. I love that idea. We've lived it. I think it would be a delight. And then finally, I surprisingly didn't put this in until earlier this evening. In the early 20s, right about now, Dig 1,000 Holes, Eppidiah Ravachol gets a chance to write the tabletop role-playing game about it, which he's wanted to do ever since he was a kid, and he first played with Intergalaxians. So that's the history of this toy line here. I have a goal here of scratching a nostalgic itch, and what I want to do, I mean, obviously I'm doing a lot of that with designing this history, but also what I want to do with that is kind of hit on some of the rules, or rules that feel and look like the rules that I enjoyed in the 80s. Now, there's still like a very broad spectrum there, and I would be remiss to not mention that the Bullwinkle and Rocky role-playing party game is from the 80s. I won't be going in that direction. I have other projects that go in that direction. This will be more like, I want a chunky game here. I want something that with stats and things that you want to build your characters out of. The idea is going to be that you have these characters that have these various limbs. The limbs themselves have dark, or not dark, sorry, I'm stuck in the 90s reboot. The limbs themselves have histories, so they might have they'll have their own names. You'll like search for lost ones, like ones that were known for great battles or whatever. They'll have powers attached to them and whatnot. So it'll be kind of a part of an important part of the background of this story of the stories here. All right, now we're getting into lost limbs of power. Now we're getting into some of the areas where all of what I just told you, I'm still very firm on, and that's stuff that I really kind of want to do. Now we're getting into the area where I don't know how firm I am. I'm kind of on edge and might drop some of this out. We came up with a drafting mechanism or something along like a card drafting mechanism for creating characters. I like it. It's a pretty decent idea. I don't know what exactly goes on the cards, so it's very hard to at this point. At this point, to do to decide exactly how all of that's going to work. If it comes together, it'll come together. But it's a thing that want to keep in the back of my brain is something I do want to do. There's a thing about rolling dice that I'm actually really close to dropping, and I don't know why I'm really close to it. It just hasn't quite clicked. All right. So this might be a more talky than typey episode again. Let me respond to some of the chat here before. Oh no, let me just finish what I'm doing here. Sorry, I get distracted by chat happening on Twitch. I'll get to that in a second. So the dice rolling thing that we have, I don't quite like, and so I'm gonna just let it kind of drift away while we think about how things work. And I want to for me, it's important to, or rather, it's not. For me, what happens is I play around with an idea and I kind of keep playing around with it until something hooks me, something draws me in, and I just can't not design it. Right now, I really like the setting, and I like, the feel of all that, and that, to some extent hooks me, but it's not the thing that is dragging me in. This has reached this sort of level where it sits in the back of my brain, and it comes up every so often, but I'm not working through my weekends trying to design it. So that would, that's where we're at. So now I'm just going to kind of flail around until I find something that I enjoy. All right. So let's take a look at what's going on here in the chat. Oh, someone got my link from a boost on Mastodon. Well, that's good to hear. This is, if you're watching this from the future, this is coming on the eve of the news that a certain billionaire might be buying Twitter, and I'm looking for other ways to reach audiences, and it's nice to hear that Mastodon is one that does that. And we have a question about whether fanfic versus canon fandom war are you the limbs. Yeah, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't have a situation. Hey, maybe I should put this in here. If there wasn't a situation like when Star Wars abandoned I can't even remember what it was called. Star Wars had an official universe, and then when they started with the new movies, they were like, well, that's not the case anymore, and Wikipedia doesn't. You know what? I don't know enough about Star Wars fandom to actually say whether any of this is true, but it'd be great if there were great schisms. So this is actually a thing that we talked about. Let me go to my litany of lies here. This is so the litany of lies is this document that I start off with where everything in it is a lie until I make it true. This is just like a scratch piece. This is just kind of where you dump ideas. And what I want to, I'm gonna just scroll around here until I find a good spot for this. If I don't have a good spot, I'll put it at the end. Oh, Plague Through the Airs. I had it on the end from before. Um, uh, yeah. Oh, Kyle Latino. Thank you for yes, the ASCII header. That's all. As I'm discovering stuff, playing around with Linux, I find old technology and yeah, I really like it. So it would be fun if we could dial into these various eras of the comics, right? And you, it would to facilitate that. It would be kind of nice to have like set up. Canon. What is Canon? Is it N for Canon, or is it which kind of? Now I'm going through chat because somebody mentioned it in chat, and well, we'll work out which Canon it is. 1N. All right. Thank you, chat. Let's see here. So that's good. Canon and Canon both sink ships. That's good. Yeah. So the idea here, it would be fun to have like a big old. I mean, I mentioned last time that I would love to have like product something that looks like it would have come from the past here, right? Like a game that would have like images that look like they came from the cover art to the old comics or on the blister packs and that sort of thing. So one of the fun things to be able to do here would be to kind of go through and say, hey, you have to decide, or you should decide whether or not, the Mandalorious arm that was originally started off at a second generation toy. It had this comic book history, and then in the 90s, it was supposedly a demon in disguise or whatever, and then somebody has like a fan theory about it, and it'd be great to supply a lot of that stuff for people to just kind of play around with and go back and forth through. And bringing bringing fandom into the mix would be a fun way. Again, an imaginary fandom, but well, actually, it doesn't have to be all that entirely imaginary. It'd be a fun way to crowdsource some stuff for the setting. Oh, okay. So that's good. I dig that. I'm trying to think like. I was thinking what I would need to work through now is to just imagine we're sitting here playing the game, right? And we have a certain number of us. Let's keep the number reasonable. Let's say there's like 4 or 5 players, and one of the players is going to play a GM style role. Ooh. See, all right. Now, parts are interchangeable. It could be fun to have a part that represented the GM, or I'm gonna need a better word than GM for it, but I would just name it after the part. Like we talk about possibly these toys being able to swap their brains. a certain line of Micronauts had glow-in-the-dark brains, and I'm obsessed with glow-in-the-dark brains. So we could have something like that. Or a shield or something that represents you are, in fact, the GM right now. So while you have this equipped, you're the GM. Or maybe there's a couple of them that'll let people be GMs, and then you could swap those parts with each other. During that time, your characters maybe take a little bit of a step back. That'd be kind of fun. I keep calling them parts. I think technically I want to make them called interchangeables. So, yeah, that's not gonna. So, I don't know if that's actually a good thing. I don't know if people are going to enjoy that sort of thing. But that might be fun. Anyways, trying to figure out like what this would look like if you're playing this. Are your characters hanging out together and just like taking on adventures together? You have generally a straightforward common goal, or are they telling, on the very end of the other end of the spectrum, are they out into the four corners of the universe? They may never ever meet up again, and they are just having this sort of rotating tale that maybe are tied together thematically. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I could do with like a few appropriate rituals and whatnot in Swords Without Master. So I don't want to like step into that realm at the very moment. But so I do think I want like a group. I want a group activity. So the idea is that you were these intergalaxians that have traveled for thousands of years, stuck inside your star torpedoes or whatever they're called, until you've crashed on various different planets and have gone around finding each other, or at the very beginning are searching for each other. Some of you are allies or were allies during the war. Some of you were enemies during the Great Space War. But now the player characters at least are working together. You probably have some intergalaxian villains because that's how the toys would have been set up. Some things from chat here. Let me just check. We got Galaxian Mind. That might be all right for GM. I do like it when whatever name for the GM role reduces down to GM. I just don't care for Game Master as a term. And let's see here. Games with rotating GM duties are a thing. I know. I'm aware. But yeah, Cosmic Patrol is one. I have a few that I have out there as well. A Plague Among Us was one from Fostival that Kyle was just mentioning. Strong influence from Dream Askew. Yeah, it's another. That's more like GM full and whatnot. Does the GM determine who the queen bee is, giving them a role for determining the goal and direction of the group? Yeah. So, okay. So, I mentioned before the Bullwinkle and Rocky role-playing party game, and I thought, I would just mention that because it happened in the 80s and we'd step away from it. But I guess it's time to talk about the Bullwinkle and Rocky role-playing party game. But when isn't it time to talk about that? So this game, if you're not familiar, came out in '87. It's based on the cartoon. I don't have it in reach at the moment. Otherwise, I would pull it out and show you. This is a visual hold on. All right. I would be remiss not to do this. Okay. Here we have, it is prop time. It's weird. I put the headphones on, and they're unnecessary. I think I just feel if I'm on camera, I need headphones. I have no audio going through these at the moment. So this is the box. This game is lovely. It has many delightful little props. It's got a deck of cards. Which you know what, I've got to switch what my video is one moment here, because I'm looking at the Twitch one and it's behind, so I'm just waiting for everything to show, and I don't want to do that. Anyways, got a deck of cards, and in the cards are just things like that could occur, things you might encounter, they're prompts, and you have this goal during the game to play all your cards by introducing the things that are on your card into the game here. It's got hand puppets. We got Peabody from Peabody and Sherman. We got Wrong Way Peach Fuzz. Oh my god, I'm gonna do a little puppet thing here on Twitch. That's what I'm doing. Resolution is done with a spinner, which I can't really show you how it works because of gravity, but you've played with spinners before, I'm sure. But the thing I wanted to grab this for, and this is... I've played this game. I really love this game, but I for some reason, over the years, have been very protective about the standees. These are little, like... here, that's... one I'll show you in just a moment, but here you got, this is the character. You could be playing Rocket J Squirrel. These would bend back and fit together so it just stands up on the table. On the back has like a list of your powers. I know that this is tiny in the bottom of the screen, but you just trust me on this. That's what's on there. But then there's this one, this standee, the narrator, and this gets passed around. So the narrator here fulfills sort of the GM role. And what's wonderful, there's a lot of wonderful things about this Bullwinkle and Rocky role-playing party game. There's I've Twitter threads about it. I don't want to spend my entire time here talking about how great about it, but one of the things that I really love is that you split up into two teams when you play this game. Some of you are playing the good guys, Rocky, Bullwinkle, and their friends. Some of you are playing the bad guys, Boris and Natasha. You're not always playing Rocky and Bullwinkle. You could be like doing the Fractured Fairy Tales or the Aesop Fables, or any of the other things that come from the cartoon. But you have these two teams. You start off the game with reading from, they have a book of adventures, and they tell you how the adventure begins, and they tell you, I think, how it ends, or they at least tell you your goals that the good team and the bad team are trying to get at. And then you kind of shoot for those goals as you go along, and as this narrator passes back and forth, the narrator does not have to be impartial. The narrator is actually allowed to make judgments and kind of move the story along the lines of what their side would want. And the reason why this is possible is because I mentioned before, you had those cards. In order to win the game, you have to get all those cards out of your hand, and every time the narrator plays the card, the narrator switches to the other team. So it becomes a mechanism for kind of tossing that back and forth. Now, that's fun. If we're basing it on a children's toy from the early or late 70s, where they probably have 6 action figures, 3 of which were good guys and 3 of which were bad guys to begin with, it would fit into that sort of mold. And that actually might be something to try and do. Not take all of the Rocky and Bullwinkle game, but take this lesson from it. I would not be opposed to that, so I'm going to take a moment to write something down here so that I don't have to remember it later. And I'm sorry if talk amongst yourselves. Enjoy the view while this happens. And watch my typos. That seems good enough. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, then some ships can, in fact, pop up between opponents. So, yeah, but that's good. I should really have... I mean, right now I'm broadcasting from our attic where we keep almost all of our role-playing games. So, maybe I'll keep pulling things out and showing them. I feel like a very, very belated unboxing YouTube channel. Okay, so that's good. I like that. Something to work towards. So we have this group of players. They have a GM that might be floating around amongst them. That GM role might actually be like a in-world object, something that they pass between the different characters. It might be like I mean, there's always the what was it called? Was it just called the Matrix in the Transformers? I think it was. Near as I can tell, it was just introduced in the Transformer movie in the 80s so that they could create Rodimus Prime, but I'm not entirely sure. I want to rewatch that movie. I should do that soon. I got to find out where that is. Yeah, the Matrix of Leadership. So yeah, it might be something along those lines where it's not even... it's something from the game world, but it's not physical. It's like a spiritual force that travels between them. But it could be a physical thing. It could be okay. So I stopped here because we kind of stumbled upon one of the things that I've been thinking about how to resolve, which is if you're doing the cartoon, right? If you're doing the early 80s cartoon, you could have things happen like somebody with the rocket fist arm that like has a rocket pack on the shoulder and an oversized fist that shoots out forward, hitting someone else, and then all of their parts flying off of their body, and then a scramble to grab which ones. Or you can have explosions, and then people put the bodies back together. And it would be, you could present it in a way that was, kind of humorous and cartoonish in its violence. But then, like, obviously, if you go to the 90s where they want to be really grim about all of it, you would have this, like, you're stealing body parts from other people. Like, you're that's horrific, right? Like, they would, obviously, the 90s comic would lean into the horror of that. So the thing is... That's a dial that I don't know exactly how to best build. Like, that's something that I think people should set before they start playing, because like, you can have fun either way, but you could be undercut. You could be surprised by it and not want to follow it through on that. So that's something I want to kind of build in right off the bat. Is playing through the eras. This will go up here. And cartoonish is a word I'm saying right now. Yeah. I don't know how to make that happen just yet. But that might be a helpful thing to keep in mind while doing this swapping GM bit. Having a good set of well, okay, so we could write like a bunch of rules that say you know don't go over here, don't do this because we've said not to do that. But what I find more effective is to create rules that kind of lead you in the direction that you do want to go in, right? Like you set a wall, or you draw a line in the sand, I should say. You draw a line in the sand and say, don't cross this line. People will be constantly thinking about crossing that line. But if you know if you're designing the game, you know where that line in the sand is, you could point everyone else in the opposite direction of that line and keep them going and keep interesting things happening on the other side there. So that's the thing to kind of keep in mind. Like, yeah, I don't know how to incorporate that just now, but it's a thing that I wanted to vocalize here. From the chat, Dan Maroshek said, if you want to add some complexity to the rotating GM, you could be concurrently playing stories from different eras. I mean, that is definitely a possibility. So this actually gets into another thing that happens in when I'm designing games, is that I will splash out big. I will just add things and add things and add things. And then usually after the first playtest, I will burn 90% of it to the ground, and we'll have what we have left. So that is definitely something I'm going to put that in. I do kind of like that idea. I don't know if it would survive, but it's not up to me to decide if it survives right now. So how do I word that? Yeah, I mean, like, overall, just having the rotating GM could help facilitate the situation where you're playing different stories where the characters are far from each other. But I think right now I want to kind of focus on what it would look like if they were like an adventuring party sort of deal. What would that adventure look like? Would it be a kind of like the Yojimbo's type of story where they come into or a Seven Samurai, I guess, would be where they come into a town that has a problem, and they because they're intergalaxians and they have these special powers and whatnot, they might be able to solve it. They might be able to overcome a local warlord, or I guess part of it is that I haven't quite solidified in my head just how space fantasy all of this is. I think I'm going to lean pretty hard into the space fantasy. That doesn't feel all that hard sci-fi, although, I mean, obviously the 90s comic is going to treat it as if it were. But yeah, this is, let's say, okay, let's just take a oh, hold on, I've got something in the chat here. Same fans some fans of different ages. Great way for us Gen X folks to feel old and busted even more than we are. Yeah. Uh, um. So okay, let's imagine a Seven Samurai kind of situation where the Intergalaxians they found each other, or I mean, like Seven Samurai, they could be finding each other at the very beginning of the story, and there's a problem. There's a town trapped under an impressive rule of a warlord who has has one of the old torsos from an old Intergalaxian that he wears as like armor plate, like a hollowed out torso. I don't that gives him some sort of power and gives him control. Like, okay, so right away I'm starting to think like, okay, yeah, but why would he be a threat to like 4 or 5 Intergalaxians that have torsos and arms and scorpion tails and gossamer wings and of course glow in the dark brains. So we would have to. I mean, like that would be a indication of his gruesomeness, of his, something that to draw the Intergalaxians in. But he would have something else. He would have like some pet dragon-like thing, star dragon, right? Like you would have to throw star or space in there almost all the time. And then how would I want that to play out? Like, would this be the kind of game that involves a lot of investigation? Like, it seems like there's, at first, I was thinking about this as a punch 'em up, shoot 'em up kind of thing, but like, if you're looking for other Intergalaxians, if you're looking for spare parts, other interchangeables, then some sort of interesting and tasty investigation rules would be useful. Oh, I think I have a thing here where I'm just kind of talking. To be determined. Don't know them yet, but I want them. Yeah, I mean this is the thing that I'm running up against in this design already. It's just that I don't quite clearly see. If I were playing with the toys as a kid, obviously the big thing would be smacking them against each other until one of their limbs fell off, and then that person runs off with the limb, and then the other one would be very upset about it. And then, drama would unfold from there. If I'm reading the early 80s comic, it would probably lean more into this sort of Seven Samurai situation with a lot of things talking about how lonesome they are, that they they have a past that's now gone for them. They'll never see their families again, and now they're these don't fit into the world at all, which again, as a kid of a certain age, I would eat up, just absolutely devour. Yeah, which means I would want some. Well, can play towards some sort of like soliloquies around that. drifting off here. I'm trying to say my thoughts out loud. Let me say some things from the chat. Audrey says, "Oh yeah, hey, come back here with my leg." Yeah, exactly. I mean, like that's fun. Kids are gonna love that. People stealing limbs from each other. And Joe says, "I just want an end scene in that comic where someone is like, 'You're more than the sum of your parts.'" Yes, yes. Yeah, it does feel very much like the cartoon, especially like when we get into the era when cartoons have to be edu- educational. They have to pretend to be educational. Uh, yes. uh, there does got to be like a Skeletor, or Megatron, or Shredder to fight. So that I mean, like there's like maybe a big bad. Like yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like a they have to have a name that sounds really ominous. You know, I I want to come up with. I'm kind of burnt by the first episode we did where the name I came up with for the toys literally existed. They were actual toys I had when I was a kid, and I didn't realize that I had forgotten. So I'm not going to try and impromptu come up with a name, but you know, it would have to be imposing and you know, feel like Megatron or Skeletor or Shredder. Yeah, like very. So there's a danger here, right? Like if you and I don't know if I want to paint myself into this corner, but if you make a villain that in the cartoon and the comic kept reappearing, right? That they couldn't defeat, like a Doctor Doom style character, then in it would be, I don't want to represent that in the role playing game as somebody with gargantuan stats, right? That's or do I? Well, I don't. I don't think I want to, because I think that would end up with you. You would end up in situations where there's got to be something else happening there. So there's other ways around it. There's fun ways you can do, like fate play, where you just let everyone know that you're working towards this goal to defeat this villain, but you can't actually destroy the villain. So the question is who gets to narrate how the villain escapes, or that kind of thing. What are we getting here? Chesticus, yes, for our evil warlord that has stolen the torso. In the early era, yes, and then eventually there's fanfic that redeems them. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, you can't create a character that draws attention without also drawing some sort of empathy from the audience, which I think is fine, perfectly having a redeeming story about them at some point, especially during that mid-aughts cartoon reboot would be great. So I mean, like, I guess part of what's happening here is that I think the thing I'm really enjoying and want to like kind of mess around with here is just coming up with some of these characters, maybe the original toy line. So let me go back to this document here, and I'm not going to be able to make something at the moment, like right here in front of you. I'm not that. Maybe after I've been doing this for a while, but and again, I don't want to like start naming things after things that I know are, you know, that exist. I don't want to be like naming one of them G.I. Joe and then the other one Leader One, you know, that kind of thing. But let's say that there's 6 action figures, because that seems to be something that people do. 3 good ones and 3 evil ones. That might be a problem later on, but we'll deal with that. And then 2 vehicles and 2 play sets. Right? Can't. So this is a goal here to well, yeah, thank you. Let's see here. As a kid, you play both sides when you play with the toys. I'd like to do that in the RPG, play the bad guys too. Yeah, that's from John Harper. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. So what I think I'll do is set myself some homework for next time is to kind of come up with this line, this original line, and that'll give something to work from. It obviously won't. It'll temper everything, but it won't set everything in stone. And I can change them as I go along. But it would be fun to have ones to refer to. Maybe I can even come up with some of their interchangeables that they come with. That would be not obviously anything mechanical or anything about that, but just a little bit of background. It doesn't have to be much. The whole thing about starting with the toy line is that it just is an object that you see and has a cool name, and maybe on the back of the box it says, like, with the fabled Rocket Fist, that kind of thing. That would cover it, and that would give me kind of a jumping off point, because it's clear that this is the part that I'm really into right now, is this setting, and I think some of the rules stuff will start to fall from that. Yes, the Mantech toy line. Somebody pointed me to there's a YouTube channel. I'm blanking on the name at the moment. The name has toys. Toys are in the name somewhere. If you look up Mantech on YouTube, you'll find they talk about the history. They talk about the history of a lot of toys. It's a rabbit hole that you can spend a lot of time digging down into. I recommend it if you're looking for a rabbit hole to dig down into. And maybe after I'm done here, I'll look them up and put them up on the Twitter and the Mastodon. I'm going to just see what time it is right now. I think I'm coming close to the end here. And I think actually we're at like a spot where I have some direction for where to go. So I might call it. And is there anything else that needs to be said in the chat? Anyone have any recommendations or ideas that they want to pour out? Otherwise, I'll go into that bit where I awkwardly talk about where to find me and ask people to like and subscribe, because wait, do you subscribe on Twitch? Well, this will end up on YouTube, so I don't know how far behind I am on the Twitch stream part here. Yeah. All right. Well, take a nice swig of seltzer there before we go. Here we go. It was good seeing you too, John. Kyle says, I just want to say that it's really easy for the villains to be more fun than the heroes. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. And something to keep an eye out for. Oh yeah, because this fits. Aesthetically, I think there's definitely some crossover with the Diamond 20 that you and Evan did. Oh yeah, Mantech even got a robot chicken sketch. Yeah, I mean most things did. Yeah, so that's actually like a real good point. Like a lot of the evil toys I think about as being the more sought after. Like it one of the kind of strokes of genius for He-Man was that they made Castle Grayskull. I mean, it's like a Castle Grayskull is the good guy thing, but it looks like a villain thing, right? And but yeah, Skeletor, Skullface is very compelling. Vader obviously is the more, like, I don't want to say the most interesting thing about Star Wars, because that's not actually what I mean. But just like as a kid, I wanted a Vader toy really badly. Yeah, like that's something to even lean into. I mean, if we're doing something sort of in the era of like the early '80s cartoon, it could be fun to just lean into it and say, yeah, you're playing villains. You get to play dastardly villains, and also you're going to be defeated by the heroes each time. Yeah, and it all depends. Like you get to play out how that happens and how you react to that, your frustrations and whatnot. Yeah. All right. So, thank you so much for joining me. I guess this is where I do say like and subscribe if you're. This is where I start. There we go. And so, if you're looking for me, you can find me at. This is my website. Eventually, you can find years old blog posts on there, but it'll also point you to many of my games. If you want to read my sword and sorcery fiction and see my sword and sorcery games, you can go to worldswithoutmaster.com. There's 11 issues of a sword and sorcery magazine, e-zine, available there. Or if you want to, speaking of, you'll find, if you go there, you can see how to purchase Wolfspell, the game that I printed on a trifold album cover, gorgeously illustrated by Shelgon. If you want to find me anywhere, like, say, Twitter or Mastodon, I'm Eppidiah. At Eppidiah on Twitter. I'm on. I don't know how you say how to find people on Mastodon yet. I'm on dice.camp, and I'm at Eppidiah there. Dice.camp is the instance of Mastodon, and that's my name there. And that's great. Thank you once again for joining me. I'm going to get better at all that, hopefully. Worlds with an S, master is singular. Thank you for pointing that out, Joe. I have a typo. That's important. That S is important. It's plural worlds, singular master. So thank you for joining me. I've got some homework I'm going to work on for next time. Hopefully this was helpful. And we'll see you then. Now I gotta do the tap dance where I try and figure out how to turn my stream off while I'm. Here we go. I found it. Wait, have I? Yes.